When I think of how I never fit in, even going all the way back to middle school or even elementary, but in middle school I was severely bullied and there were these black girls who wanted to fight me. I wasn't even dating black guys yet. I really did not know what their problem was. And now I know. I think of all the churches even as a Mormon, when I converted to Mormonism, but when I became a quote real Christian, because I did become a Christian that believed the Bible, and I got more and more fanatical as the years went on, because for one, I was trying to do what the Bible said and win your lost spouse to the Lord. And I ended up going as far as the conservative Mennonites because of the way that they really are defined, I would say, by, on the surface, they're defined by the women being, meek, and the head covering symbolizing submission. And so I was like, it wasn't like I just made a decision, but I can see that the way I ended up going more and more fanatical was a lot to do with trying to win the lost spouse that I was already married to before I became a Christian, and so I just found in the churches I started out in more like, nobody was really serious. They still did all the things I used to do, and I was like, well, these people aren't really like, they weren't earnest, and no matter if it was more like a megachurch or a Baptist, Church of Christ, going way back when I was a Mormon, or the Mennonites, I went to like, some kind of Pentecostal, non-denominational, I've gone to pretty much all the different kinds of churches, and not just once or something, but like, I tell you, when I believe in something, I give it time. I don't just, when I think of how many kinds of, I ended up going to a home fellowship for years and years. And I loved those people, and now to find out that those people, so now I know that the churches are the way, it's just all a mirage, and there are other people who are like me, who are drawn into them by sincere, looking for, trying to, find fellowship and trying to obey the Bible, trying to like find like-minded people and not forsake the fellowshipping and all these things, right? But the churches are actually just a cover for the elite, for like high elite, higher than, some of the highest elites. And what they're into is human sacrifice. They're into pedophilia. They're dismembering humans, not just children, because the vision I had was a woman, and that was real time, I believe, is what was being impressed upon me. And that was dark, early, like, I don't know if it was 4:30 in the morning or it was still dark. And I have a video about that because I couldn't tell you now what day of the week or anything, but this was quite some time ago, like a couple years ago or more. But the more and more I get like further understanding about like what all is going on, and it's like, it really is just bigger and darker and worse and more crazy and more like some horrible movie that nobody would even make, because it wouldn't, or a book that no publisher would accept, because it's so far-fetched. But it is true, and it's gonna come out, and I know it's gonna come out because I have learned, increasingly so, especially in the last number of months, that I am so protected because I have a greater purpose here. And part of me wants to put in like It's not because I'm so great, but then I'm learning to not do that, not to discount myself. I don't think I'm better than other people. I am learning I'm different than other people. I don't think I'm the only person like this, who's highly protected and has like some kind of higher calling, like spiritual work to do here on earth, at least this go around. And there had been a time where I was considering, was I going to become an atheist, but in letting go of the Bible, and particularly the call to be a daily sacrifice or submit, which ended up meaning I would go against my inner guidance, which is what we're supposed to go by. We're not supposed to stifle and push away our intuitive nudges. That's the way we are meant to operate. And there were so many times, because this was spanning so long, as I was a Christian for 25 years solidly, there were so many times, especially I remember as I was in the and the worst of it was with the Mennonites. And because of their rigidness and dress and so many things, I was giving it my all. First and foremost, I was giving it my all to be a real Bible follower, Bible believer Christian. I had hang-ups about some of the Mennonite stuff because it did conflict with the Bible, and I tended to, as long as I could, hold out on so many things. I ended up caving on the dress stuff, but I told them I didn't think it was required or anything like that, but the Bible does talk about modesty, so I was like, okay, well, this is a way of modesty, I guess, so I can do that and not, go against my conscience. But the way I went against my conscience was in things like, I didn't believe in marital rape, but in things like, just playing small, especially in the marriage when it came to the way he was treating me. Now I know so much more about narcissism and just the way that they like triangulate and use other people to just almost start shit. And that's really what the church groups are doing too, because they are all the people who are doing these things, like the human sacrifice and stuff, like on a day-to-day, the front of being these Christians or Mormons or whatever, and plenty of them are not in churches and stuff too, but it's this like playing off of people's vulnerabilities, high manipulation, just high like fear-based, like the way that the Mennonites and the husband were able to siphon my sacral energy for so long, and the extent that they were had to do with me pushing away, pushing down, playing small to what I really thought about things. I said and they just, shamed me basically. And because the things the Bible says, like about being meek and winning your spouse to the Lord by your meek and quiet conversation, for example, I would be told, well, you're not meek, you're not this, you're not that. And I would think to myself, well, I'm a whole lot more meek than I was before I was a Christian, and some of that can even lead to like self-hate and just, really thinking like, what's wrong with me? There's, I'm trying so hard and I've trusted Christ for 20 plus years, and these people act like, I'm still not this enough or that enough. And I literally had people, it was outside the Mennonite church, but I had people literally say to me, well, if you were this, then your husband would have become a Christian by now. Like, that's how manipulative these people are, to know what they really do. I also know on an even grander scale that at birth there were people who knew. I know that sounds crazy, what I'm getting ready to say. There were higher up elites. There were people I'm saying people, maybe they're not people, maybe they're aliens, but there were people, high-ranking people on Earth, who knew something different had happened. And I know that sounds like I'm trying to make myself out to be some kind of great thing or some messiah or something. I would never have thought that. Never. But what I have come to understand is that I was basically, something was recognized. My energy was very potent, very big, very different. They tried to sacrifice me like they do. They sacrifice children and babies all the time. They couldn't kill me. Then they realized, at least I know it was, at least some people, I don't know whether my parents are my real parents or not, but they knew they could not kill me. So it was like, I don't know if they placed me then with a family that wasn't my birth family or what, but they put me somewhere and fabricated a world around me basically to keep me from ever expanding. The goal was to never allow me to basically, with molesting me since infancy and just a lot of severe neglect and abuse. And then, of course, getting married early on. You're being handled. These are handlers, even if they are your blood family. And their goal is to keep you from being, a healthy and independent, emotionally stable human. Their goal is to, through molestation and all these other things. And that goes back to the bullying. Those bullies were part of this too. Because these people, I've gotten the name of my friend, my old friend. I thought she was my friend, Narda. She has several children, 4 children by now. But her oldest, his name is Suri. Suri is a very unusual name, and it rhymes with my son Yuri. But I even got Suri's name as one of these, if you want to call him a vampire. He might be 8 by now, but these people that do this, they get their kids into it pretty early on because, it's probably easier, I guess, to get the kids into it earlier than later because, it's so crazy what they're doing. So to normalize something that's as crazy as eating, killing, beheading, eating people, it would need to almost be, shown to them early enough that, they trust the parent. I don't know. I don't claim to have it all figured out, but all I can say is right now that I've learned how protected I am in the spirit, and it's not this Holy Spirit like the Bible teaches. It's not one Holy Spirit. I'm not saying they're not holy, but it's more than one spirit. And the way I look at it now is my ancestors don't play about me. I say ancestors, it might not be, I don't think it's ancestors from this, like my grandmother who died, she molested me. So I don't think it's ancestors like that. It might not be blood ancestors from this go around here on Earth, because I've been born into, unless these aren't my birth family, but I, as far as I know, was born into deranged family. So my ancestors don't play about me, and I am so protected. And the way that I know now is if my ex or any of these, there's people here at the hotel that are part of it. I know that they're stalking me still and doing black magic on me, and I will get woken up, especially the last several nights. They're going harder because they're seeing that I'm still alive, and they're getting desperate. But if my ex or one of his family members or something, we're gonna try to drive out here and try to shoot me or, put their hands on me and kill me with something more than trying with the black magic, which is going back to them and it's not working. But they succeeded for so many years in not killing me, but in, binding me and sending me dark entities, which was when I was experiencing I didn't want to kill myself. It was very much outside of me. I could perceive that it was outside of me. It was not my spirit. It was not. and that's the thing is with mental health questions, they always say, have you ever thought of killing yourself? It's like, those were not my thoughts. That was something outside of me. That was a spiritual war. And thankfully, I believed so strongly in the Bible at that time that I believe the Bible would teach that taking your own life is a sin. And that kept me fighting against that because it was horrific. So now that I know what they were sending to me was more like, we could say the word demon, but it's not just like Satan. It's just sort of like with the Holy Spirits. It's dark spirits, but it's not just one. It's not just like, the way people picture the devil or even just one spirit. At least that's the way that I look at it. But when I just think of in my whole life how I haven't been received, accepted, appreciated, seen for who I was, seen for all that I am, seen for being as loving and caring and empathetic. When I was overweight, I would have felt like if I had been thinner, maybe certain people or groups would have accepted me more. But I've lost weight and stuff, and I have before through the years as well. But it's like, no, it's not any of the things you ever thought it was. Like in school, because I was being so neglected, we weren't poor, but my parents, well, they were split up for most of the time. But like in high school, when you really start noticing, you want to dress a certain way, you want to look nice, there wasn't any money being offered to me for me to I would go to the mall with my friends, but they had money and I didn't. And I remember thinking that was odd because I knew that we weren't poor, but I was being just severely neglected. But there were years where I felt like if I had the means, because there weren't thrift stores the way they are now, the means to, get this more stylish clothes, like from the Limited or something like that, right? Like that, maybe I'd be more popular, you know what I mean? But it's like, my point is really just this broader understanding, and it keeps broadening. I keep getting more downloads and more understanding of my spirit guides, my ancestors, however you want to say. People would say God, but it's not a singular spirit, so I tend to shy away from saying God. But it's like, if I had been accepted, I would have had to have I can think of times where Christians who were really vampires, but Christians were trying to talk me out of what I was convinced of. But what I was convinced of was coming from the Bible, and I was a Christian, so I was really serious about following what the Bible said. And I know people accuse me of legalism, and I'm like, well, no, I'm not trying to earn my salvation, and I'm not trying to do even the Old Testament, certain kind of ceremonial things, it's to know now that those people who were said Christians were actually just dark entities who partake in human sacrifice, trying to knock me off of my path, and I'm not a Christian, and it's not about Christianity being right. It's more about I was unwavering, and not perfect, but unwavering in wanting to do what I believed was true and right and just. And so, but the thing that I needed to let go of to get onto the healing path with the Bible was the idea of submission or dying daily. Sacrifice goes back to the same thing. Here's the sacrifice. So when you're sacrificing yourself and playing small and squashing what you really think about things, and I'm not talking about being like brazenly just a loudmouth and just being a jackass. I'm talking about like where conviction, and I'm talking about things that are like on a deeper level. It's like what's really happening when you push away what you believe on a matter that concerns you. Okay, like these people are able, because you're not like, it's almost like you're not using the resources of all that you are, and so you're playing small. So they are able to use dark magic and also things like remote viewing, but they can travel the astral realm, and almost like they can find you, and it's equivalent to spiritual rape, but they take you even if you don't have any memory of it, but they are raping you in the spirit, and they're using your sacral energy to manifest, and they're able to do that because you aren't manifesting. You're wasting that. You're being the sacrifice, dying daily to your own thoughts and ideas and desires. And I'm not talking about fighting against temptation. I'm talking about just, especially when it comes to the idea of a woman submitting to her husband, or even worse, a woman submitting to any man just because he's a man. But the Bible will definitely teach women to submit to their own husband. And when you're married to someone who doesn't love you, even if they say they do, and they treat you in an abusive manner, even if you don't call it abuse, you just have this paradigm of you always like just kind of like taking the fault, you get blamed, and you just, okay, well, I'm sorry you feel that way, or I'm sorry about that, and you just move on. You learn not to maybe take it to heart sometimes, but you know what I mean? Like if you make a really nice dinner, and instead of being thankful, all he does is complain, and it's like, I remember being enough to make me cry. Well, see, even like me crying, or me being distraught, these were other ways for him to feed off me. And so with the Mennonites, with Tracy and the older children, and the Mennonites sacrificing my son Ethan, who they killed when he was 18 months old, and then I didn't know that it was a murder. Only in this last year, when they tried to kill me, that I realized. It's like being distraught from, grieving, which is normal. Anyone dies, and I didn't know it was a murder, so it was just more of a normal grieving, right? But they were using that to continue to monopolize off of me. But when I think now, to realize just intuitively, just from my guides, just from spiritual understanding kind of being opened up to me, I've always been very intuitive. It's at least the whole, I wouldn't say the whole state, but I believe it's even more than that. I've been getting downloads about Mississippi, Sicily. These are places I lived. And the town that I was born and raised, the Virginia Beach area, Tidewater, Hampton Roads area, and then the last 17 years we lived more in the country, about an hour away. It's all of these people know who I am. When I'm going to the post office, or I'm going to, Walmart, or wherever, these people in a broader sense know who I am. Now I know that these people, to what extent is scary to think about, but that they've been looking at on the dark web, at least a lot of people have been watching me with what would be illegal porn that my husband placed cameras. I'm thinking probably in the vent for like the air conditioning, right by right by the bed. I'm not embarrassed. Like, it's because I've healed, or that would have been devastating. I've healed just so much. Like, I'm just like radically accept who I am, all the parts of me, all the people I slept with when I was a teen, and now I know my mom was like paying people to rape me and crazy stuff. So it's like, as crazy as the stuff is, like, a church group that seems to be like, they come look Amishy, right? They're related to the Amish. They come and bring you like big cookies, and you know what I'm saying? Like, now I know that a lot of times when I had stopped going there, because there were times where I would pull back and not go for a few months because I wasn't sure about them. They would bake me a loaf of bread and bring me over some new hand towels, and like, now I know that those were hexed items. Like, they were using dark magic to manifest stuff of me. They were in cahoots with my husband. Like, this is some really deep and dark stuff. When I would have gone to the home church for a long, long time, and that was the church I went to before going to the Mennonite church, if I would have, and there were times I did, many times I reached out to like different ladies, and I would have told them about some of the worst kind of abusive things going on in the marriage, and I was looking for help. I wasn't just looking for an ear, for someone to listen, and that just, because I was like, it was really, really starting to affect my health. And so when I look back and think, it makes sense now why I never got any help when I went to different pastors and different churches. And that would have been more like Baptist churches, non-denominational churches. Like, can't think of the name of it now. The one on Great Bridge Boulevard in Chesapeake. They changed the name recently, or a while ago, but those people, that pastor, and his wife, I guess, too, but these are high-ranking elites that are the pastors of these churches. No wonder I was just being gaslit, and I was being told, well, give him what he wants, and it's criminal the way that I was being gaslit, but much, much more criminal, much more sinister and crazy, absolutely unacceptable on like every fathomable level, if you're still human, is that these people sacrifice humans and eat. They drink the blood, Take, eat, this is my body. Like, we're being a living sacrifice, is enabling these crazy people to manifest. And if it can continue, it would be called, destiny swapping. But like, there are people who go their whole lives not living in the fullness of their potential of what they're supposed to be doing here, and most people don't have the spiritual protection that I have found out that I do. And that's because the work I'm here to do is spiritual. But like, even if someone isn't here to do some spiritual work and they don't have the protection that I apparently have, which I never would have known that, of course, but let's say they're just supposed to be something like discover a certain, well, that almost would be spiritual too, I guess. I was going to say some kind of healing mechanism, but let's say they're a doctor. I'm not against all doctors either, but let's say that they're supposed to invent some medicine, or whatever, right? It's like, they play small. They don't go and like reach for their dreams. Maybe they're really good at math, or they're really good at whatever the person's good at. It's like, we live in a society where they're purposely making us play small. And like, even going to school, I remember as an elementary school kid, I was little, I don't know if I was 7 or 8. I remember, because I was always intuitive, I remember the new school year would start, and I remember one year in particular, it just really dawned on me like how crazy it was that we like went to school all day long and went home and watched TV and then barely saw parents, which was a lot of neglect in my house, but there wasn't a lot of time between getting a bath or homework, and then it was like repeat, and then everyone lives for the weekends or lives for the summer, but it's like, this is the conditioning to break away creativity from and curiosity from a child. And then those children, by and large, of course not every single one, but more than we would think, are being molested even by their own parents or by family. Like, narcissism and severe abuse, like psychological and spiritual abuse, like this is much more prevalent than what psychology would believe. Just me finding this out about the churches. It's not just the churches too. There's like regular people that aren't church people. It's like the society is, I don't know if it's half. It would seem like it's more than a fourth, but it's like the society is filled with these people, and this is what they're doing. It's gonna come out because apparently I am a bigger deal than I would have thought. It's not because I'm so much better than someone else or anything like that. It's like, it's a spiritual thing, and I've wondered, like, why do people hate me, or why do I just have dealt with so much rejection. With the Mennonites, it was probably it took a long time before I got to this point with them, but eventually it was where I tried the hardest to fit into really very crazy standards and lost myself the most. I lost myself a lot in the marriage, but it was all in conjunction. But I was a lot happier, and my nervous system was not as shut down when I was still singing and still creatively making funky clothes and doing artful things before everything became like, oh, that's worldly, and that's brings attention to yourself and things like that. But like, there's people in the churches where they it's rock and roll and blue jeans for women, and much more normal, like the culture. These people are doing it too. It's those pastors, it's those people too. It's the main families, it's the members. And yeah, I couldn't really find acceptance. Now I know. It's almost like I've been famous long before, even by higher elites. I would have been famous as I was a child. It was like I was sold to the government, and they've been studying me from afar in a way, and sending in different people and seeing how I would respond to different situations. But it was all like in keeping me small and keeping me from realizing like who I am, what I'm here to do. And if I had to say who I am or who I thought I was, I might have said, well, I want to be a singer, or I'm an artist, or something like that. I would have never said, oh, I'm a guru, I'm a real spiritual person. Like, I would have thought that was like prideful, So like, in a way, I'm as surprised as these groups that can't kill me. I'm as surprised as them. I didn't know. I know that I was always sincere and had pure motives, and felt misjudged when people would say I was being legalistic, or and outside of Christianity, just when people just maybe wouldn't take the time to like really get to know me. Like, it hurts, rejection hurts, and it's been a lot of it. But now I can think is how grateful I am that I wasn't accepted, nor did I cave into the pressure, because there's so much pressure, especially in more like your more like the mega church blue jean rock music. Like, there's so much pressure to just. I was married already, so I wasn't single, but if I had been single and in my 20s, like I was, right, like, there's so much pressure to just, do like everyone else, like, in the quote world, and just, just don't worry about getting married, just live with your boyfriend. Now, I might not think that's a sin. I don't really even, I do think certain things are sin, I guess. I don't use that word, but obviously I believe certain things are really wrong and certain things are not. But, like, having sex with children, killing people, these things are wrong. I don't have any problem saying that. And I feel like I'm probably not making myself that clear right now, but when you're not accepted, even, like, think of this with kids in school, right? Like, when you're not on the in group, there's pressure, there's peer pressure. Even if no one's saying, here, do this, because then we'll like you, there is an unsaid pressure, and you can feel it, especially if you're intuitive. I'm so glad that I was, like, willing to kind of stand alone in a lot of ways. And, I don't know, it's just unreal to think about, like, every friend I've had, every place I've tried to find acceptance, these people, they probably weren't every single person, but these people by and large were the majority, making up the majority of the people in those situations, whether it was the house church or the Mennonites or the Baptist or the non-denominational, or like in school. These were the boys that were wanting to have sex with me, and many times I was. They were feeding off of my energy. They were being, they had been taught how to use dark magic. Like, the husband is a false husband. I was set up by my parents and by my old quote friends from the Mormon church, and, like, it's all crazy. But I just feel like in the end, I'm so glad to not have been like them. If that, it probably sounds somewhat prideful, but that's the thing too, I think will change by my story. This idea that is popular in society lately, especially lately, like, well, don't judge. Oh, well, that's wrong for you, but that's right for someone else. Like, no, that's okay for certain things, and maybe can even get taken to extremes. Like, the whole thing of, like people dressing in drag or something like that. Like, I feel like that's quite extreme, but now that I'm not a Christian and I don't stand on the Bible for truth, because it's not all truth, it's a bunch of lies mixed with truth, and it is not from God, it is from the elites, and it's a book of manipulation. So personally, I might think a man dressing in drag is extreme, but I would feel like as an adult they have the choice to do that if that's what they would like to do. But, like, killing humans is not right. And the ironic, it's not funny, the ironic thing is these groups are so full of people, not the Mennonites, they stay out of politics. Like, think of Baptist, or the Mormons. They're so supposedly against abortion, but then what are they really doing? So it's like, it's a false light. It's like just a whole huge mirage. And then in their book, which is the Bible, they even tell us that the wolves will be in sheep's clothing. And I remember even telling the Mennonites that when they kept pushing their dress standards on me, and I was dressed very modestly. I was already making my own skirts and tops. It just wasn't their particular, and they were so, like, just unbending, unmerciful. And now I see it was all just a tactic to manipulate me. And if I had been a stronger, healthier person, like grown up in a normal, loving household, I would have had more boundaries. I would have known what boundaries are. I've only learned what boundaries are in the last 3 years, and I've reclaimed my personhood back. And now I've come to find out that apparently, in the spirit, that I'm some big deal. I've got this crazy protection, and people can't kill me. And I don't say that in pride. I think it's completely amazing, and I'm open to whatever I'm here to do. I believe my poetry is part of that, but I believe it's much bigger than that. I'm shocked, really. I didn't realize healing from abuse and trauma was going to change. I knew it would change my life, and I expected to meet a different kind, a better kind of man, and get remarried and offer my children, stability and things like that. But I didn't realize, there was a whole huge conspiracy against me for my whole life. How could I have thought that? That would have been paranoid and delusional to think that, your parents have set you up in a false marriage, that every friend you've had was using you and introducing you to creeps, and they're all pedophiles. Your parents, all your friends, and every person you've ever slept with, including the husband of 28 years, they're all pedophiles. That is some shit. That is some shit. And it is coming out. And this has something to do with, if you want to say a new earth, but it has something majorly to do with the vibration of earth changing, which means it's the people on earth. There's going to be a mass awakening to this true spirituality, which is not Christian. It is different, but it isn't whatever, and you can just whatever, because the guides or ancestors, or however you want to say, the spirits that are backing me, they are not okay with the things that have been done to me. They are not okay with the things that are being done to other people, whether it's babies. It's not just babies, but they're not okay with that. And I have told them, I haven't seen them. I haven't seen them in a form more than a light, light, almost in the shape of fancy snowflakes that are 10 inches in diameter. I think that's not really what they look like. But I do speak to them sometimes, and I've said, look, I don't know who you all are. I don't know what all of this is. I don't know what the hell is going on. But I'm getting the intuitive downloads, and I'm realizing that there is a spirituality more than I can't just be a cool atheist. No, the spirit world is real. So I don't even know what I'm trying to say is, I feel like it's almost been a choice of Christianity and or yes, Muslim. There are other religions, but let's say in America, by and large, it's been either you're a Christian or you're an atheist, or yes, you're agnostic and just kind of say, well, I don't know what to think, right? But spirituality, in the way that I have really found it by accident, is the truth. And I'm not branding it. I'm not trying to I don't even know what to call it, but I'm not trying to monopolize and brand it and make it my own and have a big, huge following. I think I'm going to have a big following, but it's not because I'm looking to. It's not like I've made this up and I've discovered, or even claim anything like that. You see what I'm saying? Like the way the different sects in Christianity almost would be pitted against one another. That was all part of the deception as well. Um, but like, you know, the Catholics might feel like they have like the way that it's all a deception. Okay, these groups are linked. They are not separate the way they seem. But what I mean is, if a group would, have their certain branding and then they kind of discount the others. Like, I'm not trying to discount someone who does it differently. I will say, I will go on the record against the Bible, because as beautiful and true things there are equally as dangerous and lies. So it is not God's word. That is not the real God. Because I wouldn't have gotten on this path if I had kept holding on to the Bible, which I did for 25 years without wavering. And I just told my guides, I think I lost my train of thought a little bit ago. I said, look, I don't know who the hell y'all are. I don't know what all this is going on. This is a while ago. This is months ago. I basically said, I don't fuck with you if you are these kind of spirits that want human sacrifice, who are okay with children being, or anybody being raped, but, children being molested, or people being raped, people being killed, sacrificed, their blood being poured out as an offering. If you're that kind of spirit, I don't fuck with you. And what I know now more for sure is those aren't the kind of spirits that are around me. Those aren't the ones that are backing me up. They're just. And the most important thing I did was let go of the idea from the Bible of submitting and dying to myself daily, putting myself down and letting another idea, someone else's teaching, or even the Bible and what it said was a huge part, So like, that was wrong. Our intuition will come online and become stronger and stronger when we stop submitting to, even if it's our mom or dad. And I'm not saying children should just not listen to their parents at all, but like, it shouldn't just be a blind submission to even parents. But then even as we become adults, some parents would still require that we, quote, just do as they say out of respect, and you see that in like Chinese cultures. And yes, if everyone is a healthy, emotionally balanced, I can see that to some extent. But when we are afraid to do what we believe is right in any important matter because we're esteeming anyone above ourselves, and we're going against them to please them, and going against what our intuition is leading, that is wrong. And that is exactly what the Bible prescribes. The Bible prescribes us to deny ourselves daily. And that's the taking up of the cross. And that's a huge premise of the Bible. And that allows these people to steal our life force. And if we don't wake up to it, they steal our whole destiny. They steal our whole life. And we don't wake up smiling in heaven, sitting on clouds with harps, praising Jesus. Which honestly never sounded really good, because that's kind of boring, right? But like, it gets you, the Bible teachings get you to not live the life you're here to live in hopes for a future one to come. And even though we might have a future life to come, whether it's on earth or whether it's in some other realm, and I don't claim to have all those answers, but we are not to discard the life that we're here. We're here to live this life, not to die, not to push away ourself and our intuition so that we can make pastors or parents or anyone else pleased, and being a good boy. Like, we teach our kids that, especially in schools, we're conditioned to please teacher, and some people are really very they don't even, they're heartless, you know, and you can get in trouble for doing something like sharpening your pencil. Like you're doing everything wrong. And have you ever been around people, whether you're a child or whether you're an adult, where it's like you almost learn what the person wants by trying so hard? It feels like you try. This is how it was in the marriage and with the churches, the more quote conservative churches. Like you try and try and try, and you feel like there's never. It's almost like, I remember once as a kid, I had loaded the dishwasher, and I don't know if I was 6 or 7, I was pretty young. I loaded the dishwasher more like by myself for the first time, and I think it was my mom, but it was when my parents corrected me about the way I had loaded the silverware, and I had put, maybe I put like all the handles were up. So I did it the other way, and I put all the handles down, and both times it was wrong, and I remember feeling like, whereas I should have been congratulated that I had done a great job. And, I'm just saying, when we live to people please, and I never thought I was a people pleaser. I've always been very headstrong, even when I dressed like the Mennonites, even when I went to those churches for over a decade. I mean, but I was playing small, and I was never meant to. And finding myself has opened up this whole very unexpected, huge, discovery of, oh my gosh, there's so much more going on in the world than I ever would have thought. And I was someone who saw past, a lot of the brainwashing even though I was being brainwashed with religion. I saw past the school systems. That's why we homeschooled, and I saw past a lot of things. I saw, the programming in some of the movies, or the mockery in some of the other movies. Now, I have still never watched The Truman Show, but I've heard of it now, and yeah, it's a mock. They're mocking what they're doing to us, and their rule is over. And this is, and I'm not trying to say that. I'm not trying to say I'm gonna be the new ruler, but I'm part of this new wave, this new thought form manifesting itself into, if you want to say, new earth, but it's going to be a major awakening. Multitudes of people are going to see past the lie that Christianity and all of its different sects, because a lot of people would say, well, as a Christian, I would have said, well, Mormons aren't Christians, that's a cult. But it's all a cult, and it's a blood cult. It's a human sacrifice blood cult. And people can see, because of what's happening in my life right now, it'll all be worth it when these children and women and people, whoever they are, wherever they are, in these underground trafficking rings, when these people can be freed, and this stuff isn't going on. I don't know that it will stop everywhere in the whole world, human trafficking, but when, by and large, this huge underground human trafficking and slaughtering that's going on under the guise of religion and government comes to a head, there's going to be a huge awakening. And even though I'm 47 and I've still never had a real friend in my life, or any real love, except from my youngest children before they got corrupted to be like their dad, right? Which I'm not. I hope that hasn't happened to my youngest 4 children, and it won't. But it'll all be worth it. It'll all be worth it. Everything that I've gone through, because I was the bait and I was being used, and there's a reason that all of this has happened. That's amazing. And I'm telling you ahead of time, so that when it happens, you'll know. Because who's let me know this but my spirit guides, my ancestors, intuitive downloads, it's all one the same. Like, the place that they speak to me is not audibly, it's in my internal dialogue. That's not, all those voices are not one. And that's the thing with mental health questions. When they ask people, have you ever thought this or that? That's where spirits come, good or bad, to attack or help us. It's in the dialogue of the mind. So we better be careful what we listen to, but also don't take ownership of, you know, like, I was definitely being attacked, both for suicide and for molesting, and I knew damn well I didn't want to molest anybody, and I knew it was a spiritual attack, but where it came, or where it seems to come, is more like in the mind space. So I think perhaps that's why some people might leave Christianity, for example, and might become an atheist, because they're still very much in tune with like their internal dialogue and their intuition, and they're like well-rounded and make good decisions, and so they might not count themselves spiritual. They call themselves an atheist. And so in a way it's a little bit like that, but in a way it's very different, because, you know, it is spiritual. Anything that we can't see is spiritual. So it's like even emotions, like there's entities attached to these people that are doing this horrible stuff to humans. They're no longer human. I don't care with what we see. These are dark forces. These are dark forces that have been attacking me, using human forms, you know, human bodies. You know what I'm saying? Like the things my parents have done to me, like, those are, you know, if you want to say demons or dark entities, these are not humans. And that's why I said alien earlier, when I was referring to like the highest of the elites, who I believe knew at birth that I was something different, and they went about to create this whole like town, state, and larger. Wherever I lived when I traveled as a military wife, that place was already set up and ready for me. But this is like a large scale thing, and it's coming down. Mark my words. I do believe I'm a prophet and a seer. I'm very psychic. I don't read tarot, but I could. But I just know certain things. And I think this is the way we're meant to operate. It's trusting the self. It's healing self. It's working through the trauma. It's loving self, offering safety when perhaps, like myself, you have not known safety anywhere you've ever reached out for help, or anywhere you've ever lived. You have just never known love and safety. You have to offer that to yourself. This has been like the most instrumental part of, you know, finding just true health and joy. Even though right now, like, I don't have my kids, and in the 3D, nothing really looks like it's working out, but it is. And I have been given so many confirmations. I'm winning. I've won. I've already won this battle. And the manifestations are well on the way. My enemies are being destroyed by their own dark magic returning upon their own head. And the world is changing. Even now. And it is amazing.